Don't you want to try the coffee I made just for you, sweetheart? James's voice was soft, almost tender, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. It was the kind of smile that left me uneasy, like there was something hidden behind it. We were at Nina's dining table, a long oak polished to a mirror shine, with the morning light from the tall Nashville windows spilling across its surface. Every month, the family gathered here for brunch. On the surface, it looked perfect. China plates, crystal glasses, a vase of lilies in the center. But the cup in front of me carried a smell I couldn't ignore. A metallic edge, sharp enough to curl my stomach. My name is Christina. I'm 29. And never in my life did I think I'd sit at a table, wondering if the man I married was trying to kill me. 3 years into marriage, I'd learned to pay attention. Too many sudden stomach illnesses. Too many late-night trips to the ER. Too many accidents that seemed to follow me whenever Nina was near. And now James, my husband, sat across from me, wearing that same strange smile his sister always wore when something bad was about to happen. "How thoughtful of you," I said, forcing the corners of my mouth upward. Inside, my mind was spinning. The steam from the cup carried that strange scent straight to me, like a warning. I thought about last month, how I ended up in urgent care after a single sip of Nina's tea. Doctors had shrugged, baffled. Nina had sworn she made it the same way she made her own. Nina's spoon clinked against her cup as she stirred her untouched coffee. Her gaze never left me. "James has become quite the barista lately," she said with a smirk. "He's been practicing different brewing methods just for you." The words slid across the table like a blade. "For you." Her emphasis made my chest tighten. I noticed the growing closeness between them. James spending hours at her house, claiming they were planning a surprise for our anniversary. The hushed conversations that stopped the moment I entered a room. The text messages on his phone he never let me see. And now, this cup. This coffee, with its sinister scent. I lifted it carefully, holding it close enough to look convincing but far enough that the liquid never touched my lips. My eyes shifted to them. In the silence, I caught it, the quick glance they shared. That was all I needed. "Oh, would you look at that?" I said suddenly, pulling out my phone. "I need to make a work call. Nina, would you mind if I use your study?" "Of course," Nina said smoothly. I stood, and as I walked past her place setting, I stumbled just enough to switch the cups. My fingers moved quickly, almost naturally, masking the exchange under the clatter of a chair. "I'm so sorry," I gasped, pretending to steady myself. "I'm such a klutz sometimes." Nina waved off my apology with a tight smile. "Just try not to break anything in the study." My heart pounded as I disappeared into the hallway. From the doorway of the study, I could still see the table. The room smelled faintly of leather and old books, but my focus was locked on her. Nina lifted the cup, my cup, to her lips. My chest constricted. For a moment, I thought about running back, about warning her. But I couldn't. Not after everything. I needed proof. Too many nights doubled over in pain. Too many mornings waking weak and nauseous, always after meals with them. It hadn't always been like this. When I first met James at a wedding in Nashville, he was charming, magnetic, impossible not to love. Nina had been sweet then, too. Helpful. Welcoming. Always at my side, offering to help plan the wedding, to make me feel like family. But the red flags had been there all along. The accidental spills on my dresses at important events. The meals that tasted just a little too seasoned when she cooked. The pattern started small, stomach aches, allergic reactions. James always had explanations ready. Maybe it was something you ate earlier. Or, you're probably just coming down with something. But the excuses didn't match the reality. The worst came 2 months ago, when I ended up in the hospital after breakfast at their house. Traces of something unknown were in my system, but James managed to convince everyone I'd taken expired medication. Now, from the study's shadowed doorway, I clutched the frame with trembling fingers. Nina set the cup down. Her face had gone pale. "James," her voice shook. "Something's wrong." James's head snapped up. For the first time, fear cracked through his mask. "Nina." She tried to rise but stumbled, clutching the edge of the table. I don't. I feel. His chair screeched as he pushed it back, rushing to her side. Nina, what's happening? Her hands trembled violently. Her voice broke. James, what did you put in that coffee? I stepped forward, phone in hand, recording. My chest was steady now. I had been waiting for this. That wasn't supposed to be your cup, James whispered. His words echoed through the dining room, sharp and undeniable. Nina's eyes widened, fear flooding her face. She collapsed to the floor, gasping. Call an ambulance, she pleaded. Please, I can't. My fingers dialed 911 with calm precision. Emergency services? Yes, we need an ambulance at 1542 Maple Grove Drive. My sister-in-law is having a severe reaction to her coffee. She's conscious, but her body is trembling. James was beside her now, pale and frantic, his hands useless as Nina's body convulsed. I kept the phone steady, still recording, my voice clear and unwavering for the dispatcher. Nina's eyes met mine from the floor.
Fear. Pain.
Realization. And for the first time in years, I felt something shift inside me. The usual cold calculation in Nina's gaze was gone. What replaced it was raw, unfiltered fear. Her lips trembled as she gasped, Christina, you switched, you knew? The dispatcher's calm voice echoed in my ear. Ma'am, the ambulance is on its way. Please stay on the line. But around me chaos spun. James grew more frantic with each passing second. Nina, what's happening? That wasn't supposed to, it wasn't meant for. Shut up, James. Nina's voice cracked like a whip. Anger pushed through her pain, her words sharp even as her body trembled. This is all your fault. You told me it would only make her sick. Sick enough to miss the board meeting. You promised it couldn't be traced. Her confession froze me. My heart dropped. The board meeting. My board meeting. The one where I was set to pitch the biggest client of my career. The same client Nina had been circling for months, working at her rival firm, desperate to outshine me. Everything fell into place. The tea last month. The breakfast 2 months ago. Those weren't random misfortunes. They were moves in a deliberate game. My voice was steady, though I felt my insides twist. The tea. The breakfast. Those weren't accidents, were they? Nina groaned, clutching her stomach. The tea was supposed to keep you home during the Johnson presentation. But you went anyway. Her face contorted with pain. James said we just had to make you look unreliable. Make clients doubt you. Sirens pierced the quiet Nashville street outside. James stumbled backward, his panic breaking through the mask he usually wore so carefully. Nina, stop talking. You don't know what you're saying. But she did. Her eyes flashed with rage through the haze of pain. I know exactly what I'm saying. We planned this for months. Ever since you started outperforming me at every client meeting. You were supposed to drink that coffee today. The front door burst open. Paramedics rushed in, their presence commanding. I stepped back, phone still recording, capturing every frantic word. They surrounded Nina, lifting her onto a stretcher as she writhed in agony. Only then did I stop the recording. Quickly, I sent the video to my private email. Then to my lawyer. Insurance. Evidence. Protection. James stood frozen, pale, watching his plan collapse in real time. I'll ride with her, I told the paramedics, my voice firm, no trace of hesitation. After all, I need to make sure my sister-in-law gets proper treatment. As they carried Nina out, I turned, my eyes locked onto James's. And I'm sure the doctors will want to know exactly what was in that coffee. At Nashville General, the emergency room erupted into chaos. Nurses called out orders. Doctors moved with swift precision. I sat in the waiting room, phone in my hand, replaying Nina's confession. Her voice breaking, her eyes filled with panic. This was proof. Finally, undeniable proof. Family of Nina Anderson? A nurse's voice pulled me back. I rose, noticing James wasn't there. He'd mumbled about parking the car nearly 20 minutes ago. He hadn't come back. I'm her sister-in-law, I said firmly. The nurse nodded, guiding me through the double doors. She's stabilized, but we found concerning levels of toxins in her system. The doctor wants to speak with you about some unusual findings. Dr. Phillips waited outside Nina's room. Tall, sharp eyes, gray streaks in her hair. Her presence carried weight. Mrs. Bennet, can you tell me what happened before your sister-in-law fell ill? I drew a deep breath and held up my phone. I think you should hear this first. The recording filled the hallway. Nina's panicked voice. Her accusations. Her confession. I watched Dr. Phillips's face shift from concern to alarm. This is very serious, she said, typing quickly into her tablet. The substance we found isn't something that ends up in coffee by accident. This was deliberate. A shadow moved at the end of the corridor.
James. Pale.
Sweating. He'd overheard. Christina, his voice cracked as he took a step forward. Let me explain. Stay back, Dr. Phillips snapped, pressing the nurse's call button. Security to room 412. James raised his hands in mock surrender. This is all a misunderstanding. Nina was confused. She didn't know what she was saying. Really? My voice was sharp now. I pulled up the screenshots on my phone, the texts I'd quietly forwarded to myself last week. So these messages between you and Nina? About making sure I was out of commission before the Henderson presentation? These were just jokes. His face drained of color. You went through my phone? After I found the pills in your desk drawer? Yes, I did. I turned to Dr. Phillips, my voice steady. Doctor, I've been hospitalized 3 times in 6 months with unexplained symptoms. I'd like to know if what you found in Nina matches what's been in my system. Her eyes narrowed. We'll need to compare results. Security will ensure your husband stays available for questioning. 2 guards appeared, stepping in close, hemming James in. His bravado slipped. He looked cornered.
Small.
Nina and we weren't trying to hurt you. His voice cracked. We just wanted you to slow down. You were working too hard. Taking all the big clients. Nina said if we could just get you to take time off. By poisoning me? My words cut the air. My hands shook, but my voice didn't. How long, James? How long have you been doing this? Was it you at the Christmas party too? Silence. His silence was louder than any confession. Behind him, through the glass, I saw Nina, hooked to monitors. Her face pale, stripped of its arrogance. Fear had replaced everything else. Dr. Phillips's voice was low but firm. Detective Mendoza is on her way. She'll want statements from everyone involved. I nodded slowly. Calm washed over me. The truth was out, and there was no turning back. Detective Mendoza arrived within the hour. The sterile hospital corridor seemed to quiet when she walked in, her presence commanding attention without her saying a word. She carried herself like someone who had seen it all and refused to be shaken by any of it. She specialized in domestic abuse and coercion cases. And as I played the brunch recording for her, followed by the damning texts between James and Nina, she listened without interrupting. Her pen moved across the page, her sharp eyes flicking between me and the evidence. Mrs. Bennet, she said finally, voice low, steady, professional. You mentioned previous hospitalizations. Tell me more. I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. For months, I'd been documenting everything, the dates, the symptoms, the circumstances. A secret record of my suffering. The first time was in February. Dinner at Nina's house. Severe stomach pains, dizziness, confusion. Then in April, the tea. And in June, after breakfast with them. Each time the symptoms changed, just enough that the doctors couldn't connect the dots. But I could. Her eyes narrowed as she scanned my log. And you've kept this record since then? Ever since I saw the pattern. I hesitated before pulling out another phone, the backup I'd hidden even from James. I also started recording conversations when I was with them. They were careful, never explicit, but careful doesn't erase intent. I pressed play. Nina's voice came through clear, cold. The Henderson account is worth millions, James. We can't let her ruin everything we've worked for.
Just stick to the plan.
A few days of illness should be enough. Then, James, I've got something stronger this time. She won't make it to the presentation. Detective Mendoza's jaw tightened. Her expression hardened into something unflinching. Through the glass window, I could see Nina awake in her bed. She looked different now. Gone was the smug elegance she'd worn at brunch. What replaced it was fear. The hospital's running toxicology screens, the detective told me. Dr. Phillips has already identified substances that don't belong in a body. We'll need samples from your home. Before I could answer, raised voices echoed down the corridor.
James.
He was struggling against the guards, his desperation turning his face red. I need to speak with my wife. Christina, please, you don't understand. We were trying to protect you. Detective Mendoza stepped forward, her voice cutting through his panic. Mr. Bennett, stop. You're not helping yourself. We already have evidence of premeditation. Premeditation? James barked out a laugh, hollow and frantic. We weren't trying to kill her. Just slow her down. She was burning herself out, taking every client, every account. Nina said if we could just make her take some time off. By poisoning her? The detective's words sliced sharp. That isn't protection, Mr. Bennett. That's attempted murder. The color drained from his face. His lips trembled. Murder? No, we never meant. Then tell me, I said, my voice calm despite the rage boiling beneath. When you put something in my coffee this morning, what exactly was supposed to happen? Silence. He had no answer. Behind him, Nina's face appeared in the window. She was watching, calculating, already trying to spin a story. I could almost see the wheels turning, her mind searching for a way to twist months of systematic poisoning into something less monstrous. Detective Mendoza turned to the guards. I'll need both of their phones. And I want officers at every exit. No one leaves until we have toxicology results. Moments later, Dr. Phillips entered Nina's room. Her expression was grim, her tablet glowing with fresh results. The detective and I followed her inside. James was left outside with the guards, his shoulders slumped in defeat. Nina tried to sit taller in bed, but the tremors in her hands betrayed her. The toxicology report shows elevated levels of multiple substances, Dr. Phillips announced, her tone clinical. Most concerning is a compound typically restricted to pharmaceutical testing. This isn't something an ordinary person should have access to. Nina's face paled. That's impossible. James said it was just supposed to cause mild symptoms. Mild symptoms. Detective Mendoza's voice cracked like thunder. Like the ones your sister-in-law has been experiencing for the last 6 months. The door opened again. Another detective entered with an evidence bag. Inside were several small bottles, clinical labels gleaming under the fluorescent light, along with meticulous notes. These were recovered from Mr. Bennett's office desk at the Anderson marketing firm, he said. My knees weakened. The meticulous notes, the bottles, it was all there. Proof they'd been treating me like a test subject. You documented everything? My voice shook. Like I was some kind of experiment? It wasn't like that, Nina blurted out, but her voice wavered, stripped of its usual confidence. We just needed to track what worked. The first few times weren't strong enough. You kept going to your meetings anyway. So you increased the dosages, Mendoza said flatly, examining the evidence. Did you know these substances can be lethal in higher concentrations? The silence that followed was suffocating. Through the window, James sank into a chair, head in his hands. The mask had fallen. There was nothing left to hide behind. The Henderson account, I whispered, the last pieces sliding into place. It wasn't just about one presentation. The client specifically asked for me as lead. That's why I had to be out of the way for good. Nina's face twisted, a mixture of fear and rage. You are ruining everything. I built that portfolio for years. Then you show up and suddenly everyone wants you. James said he could fix it. By killing me? The words were low, sharp, final. They hung in the air like a verdict. And this time, no one tried to deny them. And Nina's voice cracked, desperate. We weren't trying to, but Dr. Phillips didn't let her finish. She stepped closer to the bed, her tone clipped, decisive. The concentration in the coffee this morning was far higher than anything we've seen from Mrs. Bennet's earlier hospitalizations. If she had swallowed more than a few sips, the outcome could have been catastrophic. Severe. Possibly fatal. The words dropped heavy in the room. I felt them hit my chest like lead. Detective Mendoza didn't flinch. She turned to another officer, her orders swift and precise. Full warrants for both residences and offices. And contact the pharmaceutical company on these labels. Find out exactly how they got their hands on this. Nina sagged against her pillows. The fight drained out of her, her bravado collapsing into something hollow. It wasn't supposed to go this far, she whispered. James kept saying we just needed one more try. I stepped closer, my hands trembling but my voice steady. Every time I ended up sick. Every meeting I missed. Every client I lost. You were both there. Watching. Measuring. Taking notes on how your poison was breaking me down. What kind of people does that make you?
Silence.
Only the faint beeping of hospital monitors and the muffled sound of officers outside reading James his rights. Nina couldn't look at me. Her eyes stayed locked on her own hands. Detective, I said finally, turning away from her. My voice didn't shake. I'm ready to make my formal statement now. The trial lasted 3 weeks, but it felt like years compressed into days. Every morning, I walked into that courtroom. Every afternoon, I sat through testimony, my stomach tightening as the prosecution built its case brick by brick. The evidence was devastating. The bottles recovered from James's office. Their meticulous logs of each poisoning attempt. The texts and recordings where they discussed their plans with surgical calculation. But what struck me wasn't the evidence, it was them. Nina, once polished and untouchable, now looked small, fragile, like a woman who had gambled everything and lost. James refused to look at me at all, his gaze locked on the floor as if he could disappear into it. Experts testified, their words clinical but damning. Dr. Phillips laid it out with brutal clarity. The dosages weren't random. They had been carefully increased, step by step, proving clear intent to cause serious harm. Then came the testimony from the pharmaceutical company. James had stolen the compounds through a college friend working in their research department. It was no accident. It was theft, deceit, conspiracy. The prosecutor's closing argument still rings in my ears. This wasn't corporate rivalry. It wasn't petty sabotage. It was a systematic attempt to destroy Mrs. Bennet, an escalation of calculated cruelty that could have ended in death. When the verdict was read, I didn't feel triumph. Not even joy. Just relief.
Guilty.
Both James and Nina. Attempted murder. Conspiracy. The judge's voice was steady, merciless. The premeditated nature of these actions, carried out against a family member over an extended period of time, demands the maximum sentence. I watched as they were led away in handcuffs, their faces pale, lifeless. 2 people I once trusted. 2 people who chose greed over love, envy over loyalty. Their careers, their reputations, their very freedom, all sacrificed in their attempt to erase me. 1 year later, I stood at the podium of the Nashville Business Leaders Conference. My keynote speech. The irony wasn't lost on me. This was exactly the kind of moment Nina had tried to steal. Exactly the kind of future James had tried to poison out of me. The Henderson account, the one they schemed to take, had become the foundation for even bigger opportunities. Clients that positioned me as one of the top marketing executives in the region. I looked out at the audience. Hundreds of faces. And I spoke from the deepest part of myself. Success isn't only about talent or hard work. It's about integrity. About building real relationships, rooted in trust. And sometimes, the greatest threats to our success don't come from strangers. They come from those closest to us. But surviving those betrayals doesn't break us. It makes us stronger. I paused. Let the silence carry my words deeper. Afterward, people came up to me, eager, inspired. One young woman, eyes bright with determination, asked, "How did you hold yourself together through all of that?" I smiled softly. By focusing on what I could control, I gathered evidence. I trusted my instincts. and I refused to let fear decide my future. That evening, an email arrived. Henderson was renewing their contract for another 3 years. I smiled at my screen, and I thought about that day at brunch, the turning point. How differently everything might have ended if I had ignored my intuition. The local paper ran a piece that morning about James and Nina beginning their prison sentences. I didn't read it. I had no need to. Instead, I opened the proposal for my newest client, Focus Forward, because in the end, the best revenge wasn't in watching them fall. The best revenge was living the life they tried to take from me.